Well, again, we have a very interesting show today. We're going to talk about the special election that takes place this Tuesday. So the special election, a lot of people may not realize, but this is the special election in the 61st Senatorial District to elect the successor in that district. And we have Dan Gagliardo here in studio. Dan's running against the Democratic chairman, Jeremy Zellner. So we have Dan here in studio. I'm very proud to have Don Postles with us here in studio. Don had his career here from 1976 on each of the channels. We all know Don Postles. He's here supporting Dan. And we have on the phone someone who I met over, roughly 20 years ago, Baby Joe Messi. So if you remember the situation, Baby Joe Messi was an amazing boxer, a Buffalo talent. In 1993, he won the Empire State Games gold medalist. In 1993, also the Golden Gloves champion. 1995, New York State Golden Gloves champion. 1996, Golden Gloves champion, New York State. He continued 2003 North America Boxing Federation heavyweight champion. 2007 World Boxing Council heavyweight champion. I mean, Baby Joe Messi was going to be Buffalo's third franchise. We had the Buffalo Bills, we had the Sabres, and we had Baby Joe Messi. Unfortunately, there was a fight where Baby Joe Messi was injured. He won that fight, even though he was injured in that fight. He won by a decision, and that pretty much ended his boxing career. Otherwise, you have a gentleman here, Baby Joe Messi, who in 36 fights won each and every one of those 36 fights. So, Baby Joe, how are you today?
Good morning, Ralph. Thank you for having me. Thank you for that great introduction. I'm great. And good morning, Dan and Don, old friends of mine as well in the studio.
Hello, Baby Joe.
I wish I could
Baby Joe.
Hello. I wish I could be with you guys. I'm outside freezing at a dance competition, but I'm really my daughter's dance competition, which is it's fun. But I got some great time to give you guys, and it's really great to speak to all of you.
So look, most of us remember your career. I was at a couple of the fights that you had here in Buffalo, watched you. I watched you as you matured into that boxing situation, and then you got involved into politics.
I did. I'll have to take it back. My boxing career, as I often speak at schools and 12th grade assemblies, 8th grade assemblies, what have you, they might be a little young and not really remember me. That's fine. I did one a few weeks ago, and I think the kids in the auditorium are wondering why Mom and Dad were showing up at the back of the gym. Like, who's this guy? But, I have a good message to share with the kids, whether it's locally or not locally, and not only about my story, my boxing career, but really about my career was really more about the community. I think some people at that time, my dad was an incredible marketer. He was like, people aren't going to come unless they're aware of you. We got to start doing this. We got to start doing that and get seen in the community. And we were big believers in that. And this community is incredible, Ralph. And before we go on to talk really about Dan and Don and Dan's mission here on February 3rd is the community. The community here made me. If I was born in Las Vegas or L.A., Miami, Houston, big boxing towns, would I have been 36-0? That's possible. Would I have sold 20,000 seats over 3 times? No. That never, ever would have happened. This community made me. Not boxing, not, it's wonderful. And I've been blessed to be able to travel the world due to boxing. And I love to travel, but I'm never leaving this area. And aside from our petty differences and the things in our long winters, man, these are great people here in upstate New York, and they made me. You won't sell twice. I wasn't that good of a fighter, okay? It wasn't about boxing. It wasn't about me, just the community. And they rallied around me at a time and made me kind of unique, and it was wonderful.
But, Joe, everything you say is true about this community for sure. This is the community of good neighbors. But it is your drive, your personality, your ambition, your effectiveness, your talent that made you what you were. And I want to tell people a little bit about another side of you when your cousin needed a kidney transplant. What happened there? Tell us about that.
Well, my cousin Janelle, she's passed now.
I know.
During my career, and we were very close. We were the youngest of the family, Janelle and I, and she was wonderful. But she suffered kidney failure, a long, drawn-out process of dialysis and surgeries, and she needed a kidney. So we thought, let's use my voice. I started a foundation about how important organ donation is. I still support units and organ donation, and just promoting people to listen, see their primary care physician, sign their license. When you're gone, you're gone. Let's continue to donate your organs. But Janelle got a kidney. Look, she didn't make it, but in the long run. But it's just an important cause to me, and I got involved. Go ahead, Ralph.
That's your involvement in the community. That's you giving back to the community. Sure, it's your cousin, but we all have situations in our family. You took it many steps beyond that. You personally donated a substantial amount to the Golisano Children's Hospital. I'm aware of that. But you made that a cause. You raised the level of awareness so that people understand about these kinds of things, and that's just another part of you, Joe, that I think people need to know about. You were a great boxer. You did a great job, 36 wins out of 36 fights. That's a tremendous record. You were taken out by a fight. You fought back to try to get back into it, but, you're safe, and, you're a good person, and you were really good for this community.
Well, thank you. I often say, one of my lines is, it took a lot of maturity and a lot of years to realize this. God didn't give me the gift of boxing. Boxing was just a tool. He gave me that tool in order to do better good and to do good. I've received letters, and I have a stack, whether they're emails or I printed them up a file, across the country of people that I got a letter, for example, and from Colorado. My uncle was a huge boxing fan. He enjoyed watching your fights. He passed away in a tragic car accident. And because he loved boxing and watched you so much, we donated his organs. I have letters like that. I don't know this family in Colorado. I've got a stack of them. Boxing wasn't the point. God didn't put me here to box, but he helped me with a stepping stool of boxing to make a small difference, and whether it's helping or motivating an 11th or 12th grader that's kind of confused. They don't know where they want to go in life. None of them do at that age. But I want to be a support. I want to be tell people my mistakes and make sure that I'm there for this community. This community made me. I didn't do anything for this community. This community made me, and I have to pay it back.
So I want to let people know that you've been a Democrat all your life. You continue to be a Democrat, but you are supporting Dan for this seat. Isn't that the case?
Democrats for Dan Gagliardo. I love it. I love this because, and I love Dan. Man, I've just gotten to know Dan, and he's us. You know what I mean? Like, he is a dad. Listen, I ran in 2008 for this Senate seat, a little different district then, but a little different cutout. But so the Senate seats, I had a great time that year, and it was a long time ago. That's almost 20 years ago. And I've done a lot of maturing since then. And a lot has changed since then, good and bad. But when I look at people running for office, I love the everyday person. I love the firefighter that wants to run for a board seat. I love the school teacher. I love the local businessman. I love someone that's just not part of the regime. I don't care about party systems to that extent. It's important in some matters, but he's just that guy. I'm a father of 2 daughters, and I have a son, and I'm a grandfather now. And my wife and I own a small business, and that's what Dan is. And that's what Dan is, and he's such a great guy, and he cares about this community, and he wants to pay it back. And he cares about his constituents, and he's the everyday guy. So I hope when people realize this Tuesday, don't overlook it, don't forget to show up at the polls. This Tuesday is Election Day in the 61st Senate District.
And there's a startling difference between Dan and his opponent in this particular situation. I mean, there's a night and day difference here.
It is night and day, and his opponent is. I don't take anything personal. I have very thick skin. I have learned that through boxing, and in my 1 year running for office, it took me 12 months. I don't. People have been criticizing me in the media, and I don't care. And I hope no one else does, and I hope he doesn't either. It's not personal. This just isn't personal. It's just common sense. Do you think Dan owes favors, or do you think his opponent owes favors? Do you think Dan's going to follow suit to the party regime and things of that nature, or do you think his opponent is going to do that? Do you think Dan is fresh, or do you think his opponent is fresh? Come on. It's so obvious. It's not real difficult. I've been to Albany a whole bunch. I've been in the Capitol. I spent a lot of time there. It's not difficult. It really, really isn't. To talk to your constituents, to be in your community. This guy's got several restaurants. He's always in the community. He's talking to people daily. He's knocking on doors. He cares what matters to them. And I just don't think we're going to get that out of his opponent.
So here's the way I look at it. I've been involved in politics for quite some time. Here in Western New York, I believe this is a conservative community. It doesn't matter if you have a D or an R in front of your name. This is a conservative community. Our people are ethnic people, hardworking. They want to go to work. They want to earn a paycheck. They want to do better for their children. They want an education. What's happened, unfortunately, is the Democrats in this state have gotten to be controlled by downstate, very, very liberal Democrats. The Mondamis, Sean Ryan. That's unfortunately where the Democrats have headed. It's not the Democrats of the past. It's not the Democrats that where you ran in 2008. It's a totally different situation today than those days. And as you said, Dan is a people person. That's what restaurant owners typically are, and I've met him on several occasions. I've gotten to know him. He's down to earth. He's a business-minded person. He's not looking at this from the perspective of Democrat versus Republican. He's looking at this from the constituents of this district and what they need, what they deserve, what should be brought to them, what New York needs. He's looking at it more from that perspective, and that's why he has our full support, and I'm very proud to hear that you have come out publicly to support him.
I'm not as in-depth into politics as you are, Ralph. I enjoy following it only because the community is important to me. We have our hands tied in upstate New York, this awesome community, Rochester, Syracuse, Buffalo. It's just so great here. And we have our hands tied. There's nothing we can do about it. It's not our fault. New York's a wonderful city. We have the biggest city on the planet that we are sitting next to. And it's just, I get it. But we need people, at least I know this, we need people upstate like Dan, the everyday person, the everyday business owner, the everyday engineer, the person that has a job and a family and understands that is not part of the regime, left or right. Well, this is left or right. That's not going to be radical, left or right, and just have common sense. The extremism has to go. We just want to have common sense, someone that's really going to talk to their not only their constituents, but their colleagues across the aisle. They're going to have relationships. He's got no enemies. They're going to have relationships. They're going to get stuff done, and he's going to bring some resources and revenue back.
We are here in studio with Russ Gugino, with Dan Gagliardo, with Don Postles, and on the phone we have Joe Messi, Baby Joe Messi. So, Joe, I'm glad you're able to stay with us for more time. You and Al Capola, two Democrats, went out publicly to support Dan. Tell me why and what brought you to that.
I think, I'm not saying I'm proud of the D in front of my name. Like, I'm a Democrat, and I'm like a Clinton Democrat. I'm not today's Democrat, but if anyone understands that difference. But I like crossing the line to support. I think it's important. I think it shows today that I don't want judgments being made on people's beliefs or people at the dinner table getting all uptight and upset over someone's belief or their R or their D or their conservative or liberal. And I'm really tired of that. I'm really kind of fed up with that. It's kind of why I thought in 2008 I would be a good representative. I really do want to reach across the aisle. I really do want to do what's best for the community. I got to tell you, I don't think I was ready in 2008. I don't think I was mature enough. Had I won that race, I look back and I have no regrets. I don't think I was strong enough or knew enough. I might have fallen in line. I really do think I might have I don't know. Today, I'm 51. I feel like I know more. I'm smarter, and I can stand on my feet a little bit more and be a better voice or representative. I'm not saying I'm running. I'm just saying I think I would be better today. I'm glad that I didn't win that race. I don't think it was the right time for me. Having said that, but now today I like to put my support out for people that I absolutely believe in and trust in. There's tons of races going on around us, and a lot of times they're not worth putting your name on, putting your stamp on, or putting your support, because I don't know, both candidates are like, you don't know what they're doing in there, or if neither one's going to really make a difference. This is not one of those cases. This is something where I got to get off my seat and speak up.
So look, I've been the chairman a long time. I've been involved a long time. And there was a time, not that far back, there was a time when conservatives endorsed Democrats as well as Republicans. It was about the individual, about what was inside the individual, what the individual wanted to accomplish, how the individual reacted to his constituents. We were always focused on that. But we've become so bifurcated today. I mean, and that is the problem. I still believe, as I said, that this is a conservative area. Whether you have a D or an R in front of your name, this is a conservative area. These are people, hardworking, ethnic people, want to go to work, want to support their family, want their kids to get a good education. They don't want government in their everyday life. They don't want government to tell their kids in school that they can transgender or that they can do these kinds of things. They want their kids to get the basic education out of school. There's so many liberal paths that unfortunately we have taken now that has separated us. So it isn't as likely that we're going to endorse a Democrat. But if I had a conservative Democrat, certainly we would look at that.
Yeah. Look, it's just, I call it common sense. Stay in the middle. Talk about what's important. Talk about, it's not conservatives and liberals that are suffering from unaffordable prices. It's everybody. It's not liberals or conservatives. That we need to protect our neighbors and ourselves and support law enforcement. It's not liberals or conservatives that you want less taxes, you need less government. How is that not center, right down the middle, common sense? I don't understand. It's just common sense. And forget about the national news and the labels. We're seeing a lot of ugliness on the national news. But I think everyone knows, and Russ and Don and Dan know as well in the studio, that, look, we got to take our focus off that and the R&D and really focus on what's important here in our community and what's going to happen, what Dan is going to vote on, and these are important things and resources and the revenue that we can be using right here in our community. So, we've got to turn our attention away from that, what we're seeing on Fox and CNN and News Nation, and that's, it's unfortunate and some of it's ugly, but, let's focus on Grand Island and Tonawanda, Amherst, Waynesville, and North Buffalo right now and see what we can do better here.
With your career and with everything you've said, I look forward to trying to talk you into becoming a candidate. But we'll talk about that later. Right now, this is Dan's. We got to get people out to the polls for Dan.
We do. It's Tuesday, man, February 3rd. I'm telling you, this is a sneaky date. We have to get people out to vote. Tuesday, February 3rd. Look up. I mean, if you're in one of those towns I just mentioned, go to your local polling place, and it's really, really important. It's a really big opportunity for our community. Really, really is. It's important.
Look, Joe, I appreciate you being on. I hope to have you on in the future. I hope you have you on where I can convince you to, maybe some other kinds of things. But
we'll never say never.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you very much, Joe.
You got it. Hey, good luck, guys.
Okay.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for the kind words.
All right. So now I want to turn it over to Don Postles. Don, you obviously have your pulse, your finger on the pulse of Buffalo people. You've been involved to that degree for now since 1976. That's, quite a number of years. Tell us what you feel here in terms of this particular race, in terms of Dan Gagliardo here, and let's.
Ralph, let me just say this. Since I'm retired, I can say that I'm a big fan of yours, and I want to thank you for what you've done through the years, watching you with the Conservative Party, and such an important role that you play in our community. And before I got behind Dan Gagliardo, I didn't know much about him, but my daughter loves the Volios, and that's where when she comes to town, she and her girlfriends get together. But I want to say this. You know what I did, Ralph? I asked some about Dan's employees, what was he like to work for? To the T, every single one of them said to me, you can't find a better employer than Dan Gagliardo. And that's when I knew I was getting behind a quality guy. What you see is what you get. I kid him a lot to say, Dan, you're the man. But he is. He deserves this seat so badly because it's not about him, it's about us. He wants to serve our community and do what's right. He's come up with common sense themes that no one can argue against what he stands for. And yet, we have so many more more blues than reds in this town, and we're trying to figure out how did Amherst become Democratic when all the years I lived there with my family, it was Republican. And now the Democrats control it. I don't know what happened. It's not about the party. It's about the person.
It is. And I've gotten to know Dan, through this last cycle and how grounded he is and how much he brings to the table. Look, when I look at candidates, I look at their whole personality. When I try to find people who work like the rest of us, who have, signed the front of paychecks as well as just endorsing the back. And Dan is one of those people. He's done the American dream. He's come here, he's worked, he's built a business, he's employed people, he's a people person, and every conversation I've had with him has been a positive conversation in my mind, and I think he's the right person for this district. There's no question. And winning this district is going to be monumental. The numbers are against him, obviously, but there's going to be a very low voter turnout. The weather has been the worst it's been,
in years.
And so getting out to the polls is not the easiest thing in the world, but it is critically important. It is critically important. And if you're a believer in doing right for your community, please take the 20 minutes, the half an hour to go to the polls. There are plenty of polling places you can go to. It's easy to find those polling places. You can go online to the Erie County Board of Elections, and they will direct you exactly to where they are. But go to the polling place. They're not going to be busy at this point in time. You'll be in and you'll be out. Dan's on that ballot on both the Republican and conservative line. It's easy to accomplish. And, Don, you've lived in the community for quite some time, you've told me. I have the greatest respect for you. You've seen how Buffalo reacts. This is a winnable race, right?
Absolutely. Have you gotten your utility bill lately? I just got my electric bill the other day, and I said, "Dear Jesus, thank you that I have the means to pay this. But how does the blue-collar working guy, a middle-class family, afford this lifestyle that we have with what they've done with the Public Service Commission and the pay raises they've given to these utility companies, the taxes, the school taxes? It's outrageous, and I don't think we can sustain this advancing all, like, the town of Amherst got slapped with 11.4% tax increase by the Democrats. How can you do that to the people? How? You can't justify it. I'm just looking for someone with some common sense, and that's what Dan has. That's why I can't wait to vote on Tuesday.
There are so many of these kind of issues. Bail reform that they've put into effect. So you can go shoplift and be back on the street.
Before the cop has the paperwork done.
Yeah, you're back on the street. Bail reform, it's just totally wrong the way they've got it. The electric mandate that all new houses have to be electric. Now, they put a pause on it, but it is only a pause.
You know, my son and his wife just bought a new house. It was a new built by Murano. And he says, we got to get you in there before the end of the year so I can give you natural gas.
That's right.
How ridiculous is that? Now, no wonder they put a pause. They know it's a stupid thing that they passed.
They put a pause solely for political purposes for Kathy Hochul's election. As soon as she gets elected, God forbid if that happens, that electric pause will be gone and all brand new houses will be electric. You can imagine with the kind of weather that we've just had, and how many people lost their power during this terrible storm that encompassed all these states, 2,000 miles across all these different states, all these people that lost power. If you were only electric, where would you be? And yet, that's what Kathy Hochul and the downstate Democrats want for us. If we don't have people in the legislature like Dan in the Senate, if we don't have those kind of people, we lose. And so many constituents lose.
And electric is much more expensive than natural gas. I had an apartment in Dayton, Ohio, my first anchor job, and it was all electric, and it was outrageous. And it used to be affordable around here. Now, that's the key word the Democrats are using, affordability. Who made it unaffordable?
That's right.
You ever asked them that?
There's no question who made it unaffordable. And again, we had Phil Nanula on from Essex Homes and president of the Builders Association telling us about just the cost, the additional costs that we would incur to build these homes that are all electric, and that the grid can't support it. So it would take decades, actually, for the grid to be where it needed to be to really support it. It's just a terrible idea. But downstate, very liberal people believe this is the way to go, and the government, our state government, is pandering to them.
Well, something happened to Kathy Hochul. She went to Albany. She's now drinking that downstate Kool-Aid. She didn't used to be this ultra-liberal Democrat that she is now. And, upstate New York, Western New Yorkers, we don't think that way. We don't live that way. We help each other out. We hear it all the time. We're the city of good neighbors, and you hear example after example during a blizzard, someone coming to the aid of someone else. But, darn it, if we're going to be the city of good neighbors, we got to put good people in government.
She did show us how to shovel. We're going to be we'll be back right after this. As I said, we had Baby Joe Messi on the phone for the first segment and a half. We had Don Postles here in studio, Russ Cugino here in studio, and Dan Gagliardo, who is our candidate for the 61st Senate District this Tuesday, this coming Tuesday. You have to vote. Early voting is still taking place right now. You can early vote today, and then it's over with. And then Tuesday, go to the polls, cast your vote. Special election. I know most people, it's cold outside. Most people aren't even aware of it. But please encourage your family, your friends, your neighbors. please. It's important to you. It's important certainly to us. Don, we're talking about, Kathy Hochul, how much she's changed from when she was Buffalo Kathy Hochul. She certainly isn't Buffalo Kathy Hochul anymore. And unfortunately, that is becoming more and more prevalent in our state legislature. Our state legislature is actually controlled by downstate, extremely liberal people willing to call themselves socialistic Democrats. Where in your years would a Democrat acknowledge that they were a socialist?
1960, a neighbor took me to the airport to see JFK, and the following week to see Richard Nixon. It's an image in my mind I'll never forget. I was a little boy. But you know what? There was no big differentiation between a Republican and a Democrat back then. And even though my dad voted for Nixon, he said, this Kennedy guy's pretty sharp. And he's bringing our country together. It was the Camelot years. He was a great person.
He was.
He happened to be a Democrat, and I think if he saw the Democratic Party today, I think John F. Kennedy would be rolling over in his grave.
He wouldn't be he wouldn't be an endorsed Democrat today, that's for sure. I certainly, in my growing up years in that time frame, he was everybody looked at him, they admired him.
Yes.
It was what a president should be, somebody who brought the country together, who tried to do the best for everybody. We need to get back to that. He certainly was one of my favorite presidents, Ronald Reagan being the favorite, no question about it.
But you see the Democrats today seeing what can our country do for you, where Kennedy said, what can you do for your country?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Turned it around. So, look, we're here talking about Dan Gagliardo. So, Dan, you had a debate recently. And so you were able to be in the same room with your opponent. Questions were asked of both of you. Tell us a little bit about how that went.
Well, first of all, thanks everybody for the nice, kind words. Ralph, Don, Baby Joe, I really appreciate it. It was it's the second time I've had to do this debate, and it was very interesting because when you're up there, you're not allowed to really have a debate. It's more questions that you get, and I find myself, when you think of somebody, because this is the first time I met Jeremy. So, and I will just give you one little thing that happened. Will tell you exactly what this is about. At the end of the debate, he had the ability to give us his closing statement. He was first and I was second. So he thanked everybody but me. So when I did it, because I'd already written a closing statement, I said thank you to him. That is exactly the kind of man he is. He's above it. He doesn't think about the people. He didn't engage with it. Everything that he was saying was very one-sided. He started out attacking the president and didn't bring it to local issues. And what I found was he was very aloof to anything that was talking about engaging people. They asked me a question about, why I thought he questioned my being down the middle of the road. And I said, that's because you're not a business person and you don't understand. Any person that goes out to my business or any business around here, or a fireman, or when they go out working, nobody ever asks you what's your party affiliation. They service you. And that's the point. This is the baseline for which we should start. Well, at that particular point, he was unable to really stay on his feet because these were common sense approaches, common sense answers to questions that the audience was asking. And what happened was, as they were asking the question, he couldn't even look at the people that were there.
His whole life, his whole adult life, has been politics. He's never had a different job.
He's a party boss.
He went to volunteer out of school, and they took him in, and he has been in that Democratic Party with a Democratic job his whole entire career. I met Jeremy when he first became a chairman, and at that point in time, he seemed open to a lot of things. We have a breakfast every Saturday. He actually used to come to the breakfast. But as Mark Polenkars becomes the county executive, and Mark pulls further to the left, Jeremy certainly pulled further to the left and went to the left with Mark. As chairman, we would get together on a yearly basis and at least talk about these elections, talk about who we might be able to support, and have some conversations. Well, the last conversation I had with Jeremy was 2016. 2016.
Wow.
So in 2016, there were 2 Supreme Court races. And we would sit down and talk about, the character of people and see who we could endorse, who we might be able to support. Because back then, again, it was mostly about the character of the individual. But Jeremy called me and said, look, I'm not going to do this cross-endorsement. I'm going to run 2 people because we win all the time. It's a Democratic year. It's a presidential election. We always win. So I'm going to do 2 people. So I would appreciate you doing this one Democratic person. Instead, we did we did actually a conservative and a Republican, and we won both of those races. And he stopped talking to me. He stopped talking to me. And so I've had very few conversations with him since then. I mean, when he bumps into me, he's at least cordial. But he's gone so far to the left. I've seen Jeremy from the beginning. And at the beginning, I've got to admit that he seemed like he wanted to try to put the Democratic Party together. He wanted to, promote good people. But that was 12 years ago. And so over those years, excuse me, he's changed. There's no question he's gone far to the left. He purposely supported Sean Ryan so he could have this seat.
He's never acknowledged anybody other than the Democrats in this debate. And what I found fascinating about it is he made a statement, and we talked about this as we were coming in. He made a statement that we're not going to get funding if a Democrat's not in that seat.
I can't believe. Tell the audience what that was about.
He came out in an article, and he stated that you need to have a Democrat in this seat in order to get funding from the state. So now they brought this up at the debate, and I said to him, I went, okay, I want to make sure I understand what you're saying here. So now you've just made the governor complicit that if a Republican wins, we're not going to get money. I don't think you want to go there. And he was extremely he caught himself because it's true. You don't say things like that.
But unfortunately, that's where the Democrats are. I've always said the Democrats do because they can. Not because it benefits the constituents,
right.
Not because it's better for New York, not because it's the right thing to do. They do because they can, which means they're always trying to better for themselves. It's like redistricting. It's like, Erie County
right.
trying to be its own judicial district instead of
right.
the 8 counties.
Right.
They do because they can. We have to stop that. We have to put an end to that, and that's what you're about.
That's right. He could not argue because the entire debate was about being inclusive, bringing people in. Just like you said, you would be supportive of a conservative Democrat if
Sure.
the person was the right person. Don, you were a blank. I mean, so you now are able to pick somebody because you're not limited by your job to do these things. Just goes to show you, a Baby Joe Messi or Al Capola, people are beginning not to be afraid to talk and be able to say, I like you for what you stand for. This is not, we kept talking about the fact that why are you engaging? Why are you trying to make this about us against them? Nobody is talking about bridging those gaps. And the problem that he faced was he couldn't sustain the debate, Ralph. He couldn't do it. He could not do it. And at the end of it, he just kept trying to make himself look better. Real quick, we sent out some mailers, and he didn't appreciate the mailers. Didn't appreciate that we questioned him or we made a parody of Boss Hogg. He didn't like it. So they asked me the question, and I said, it's all true.
Yeah, it's true.
It's all true. Everything that was on there is true. And he just looked at me and stopped talking.
Dan, you make a real good point about the difference between the boss and the businessman. Here's the irony. If he were to be elected, he would be bossed by the New York City people.
That's right.
And the people in Western New York ought to know that the boss that he listens to, Dan Gagliardo listens to, you're the boss. You're the boss for Dan Gagliardo because he talks to you every day in his business. He's knocked on 10,000 plus doors that he's been in your neighborhoods. Boss Zollner hasn't been in anybody's neighborhood. He hasn't knocked on any doors. He doesn't need to because he's the boss.
He actually rolled his eyes. One part of the debate, he rolled his eyes because I said, I'm looking forward to working with Sean Ryan. I'm looking forward to looking at Sean Lavin, Mark Polenkars. I'm looking forward to working with all of them. This is about working together and bringing now to this community where we get. He rolled his eyes, he lifted his head, and the people were almost aghast of him doing it. Because it was like, are you 4 years old? Is this what you really believe? That you cannot really bridge the gap? You cannot, this divisiveness doesn't work. As we can see, it doesn't work.
My wife tells me, Dan, for what it's worth, that your political ad is the best she's ever seen. And I think the line that grabbed her was when you're in your restaurant, you say, I have the right recipe for success.
That's right.
And I agree with that. You're a quality guy. You deserve this. And the neat thing is, you don't need it, but you want it. It's in your heart. And I see it when I campaign with you. And I'm just so excited about Tuesday night. The vibes out there feel right this time. And, you know, you'll be driving 4.5 hours down the thruway.
I want to say this. I want to make sure I get this in. You know, everybody asked me about jumping from supervisor to this race. And I will tell you today that I believe that I had to go through the supervisor race, understand grassroots politics, understand what it was important, but I think that I'm supposed to be doing what I'm doing right now. I believe that my message was larger. It's about getting to the root and doing that. And I really believe that today I needed to go through all of that because I identified with people more than I've ever done in my life. And it just felt right. And I think you're right, Don. I think for me, this is about being able to make a change that has substance and being able to get that word out and do that.
You know, our state was much better when we had a Republican-controlled Senate, even though we still had a Democratic-controlled Assembly. We had checks and balances. We need checks and balances in this state. Otherwise, we slide too far, and in this case, too far to the left. So yours is the Senate seat. It is a critical piece to improve the situation in this state to be able to take the Senate. Now, this is one seat, so it doesn't take the Senate, but it is the first step. And if we are able to do it in this step, then the second step comes in November when people realize that, yes, it can be done. We can put checks and balances in New York State government. We can have a government that's more responsive to the people, to the individual, to the taxpayer, so that we don't continue the 1.7 million people that have left this state. 1.7 million people have left this state.
People are voting with their feet.
That's right. They're voting with their feet. And just like the Democrats who say we do because we can, people with means, they leave because they can, and they move to Florida. They move to red states where they're freer, where there's no income tax, where government supports individuals, promotes our education. That's what we need. All right, everyone, I appreciate that you're here today. Please go vote. That is so critically important for Dan, for all of us.